Aloha, everyone. Welcome to module number 5. This is nonverbal communication. You've made it halfway through the course. Awesome job. I hope you're watching the other Flipgrid videos and reading the discussion forum posts. The titles are awesome. The discussions are awesome. I'm really impressed with what's going on in here. So this week, YouTube says I got 9 minutes. That's what you folks are watching. So please read the book. Yeah, there's so many good examples in there. I'm just going to really try to highlight the 10 main terms again. They're bolded and they have an asterisk by them. But let me briefly touch on some other stuff, okay? So I'm going to disappear. We'll try to keep it short today, okay? So nonverbal communication, I think it's chapter 7 in your book. These skills are vital. Just knowing how to communicate to people, right? As a baby, think about how babies communicate. They don't have any language yet, but how do you communicate with a newborn, right? A 1-week-old, a 2-month-old? How do you know they're hungry? They need to be they change their diaper. All the way toward the end of life, when some of us lose our ability to communicate verbally. How do folks communicate, right? Is it just down to eye contact? It all has value. You know, some of us were shy. Maybe we sit in the back. We joke about that. Sometimes we sit in the back of the room near the door in a conference, but even that communicates something, right? Versus sitting in the very front row. It's primarily relational. So nonverbal communication basically shows your relational status to the person you're communicating to. So listen to that again. Your nonverbal communication shows the kind of relationship you have with the person you're talking to or showing the nonverbal communication with, right? So for example, back to the conference room, if you're going to sit in the back corner near the door like I do, it probably means you don't know the speaker, right? That's your relational status. Where if you're going to sit right in the front row, in the very front middle center there, it shows maybe you know the teacher, okay, if it's your friend there, and so on. So the way our impression management, it shapes relationships, it conveys emotions. Nonverbal communication is very, very important, okay? It often offers deception cues, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You can tell when people are lying or not telling the truth, right? Or using equivocal words we talked about in the last chapter. It's ambiguous. So mixed message, it sends a mixed message. So this could be one of the things you talk about, right? This is a bolded term. Think about how ambiguous nonverbal communication is. So there's a picture there. This is straight from the book. I think it looks kind of creepy, actually. I can't tell what's going on subconsciously, right? But if I were to look at everything piece by piece, is that a knife? She doesn't look very happy. This is from a movie. It's very ambiguous, right? And you can think of your own examples, right? Like when I go surfing, I can't see very well. My vision's like 2450. So I'm in the ocean. I can barely see body language. I was out there with my son one day, and I'm trying to wave to him like, "Are you ready to go?" And I swear he flipped me off. He's only 11. He didn't, of course, but I can't tell just the way he puts his hand up, right? So think of your own examples of mixed messages, okay? And there's so many out there. Very quickly, these aren't the terms, but read the book. Gender matters. Even the way I talk, right, with my voice, very 1980s He-Man, Miami voice, it's evolving as well, right? But gender, the way we talk, the way we use our voices, the way we stand, the space we take up, the way we look at people, and this matters by culture as well, right? If you've been to other cultures, some people they stand very close and talk. Some people stand far away. In other cultures, you don't look at the person talking. Use of time is always interesting as well. We talk about Hawaiian time. When I worked in China, actually, I worked with some folks from Germany and Switzerland, and they were talking about the trains there. If it says the train's going to come at 11:29, the train is there at 11:29. Versus in Hawaii, we talked in my last class about some folks go to church and they're saying, if you want people there at 9:30, tell them starts at 9, right? So just a different culture affects the way we handle time, right? Okay, here's some bolded terms here. There's 4 of them, so let's take care of the slide. Body movement. So you all know this, but let's use the term kinesics, okay? Like kinesiology. Some of you folks might be studying that later on, physical therapist, sports trainer. So kinesics is it's really body language, right? How your body moves. So you have things like posture, your gestures, face, eyes, microexpression, leakage. Okay, so I got my camera turned back on here so I can show you a little bit of this. So very quickly, so body orientation, this is really important. On Zoom, it's kind of harder to show, but you can kind of see generally which direction people's bodies are facing, right? So very quick tips. If you're going to an interview, for example, whether it's face-to-face or on Zoom, you don't really want to be oriented away from someone, right? You want to be more oriented toward them. One thing in terms of your posture and your body, one thing I could tell on Zoom is if you're going to an interview as well, this quick tip, don't, if you have one of these swivel chairs, don't swivel in your chair. I've seen a lot of folks online doing this, right, when they talk. This would be kind of one of the only really cues, right, and communication's ambiguous, Maybe you're stretching, but probably you might be a little bit nervous. So watch the swiveling, right? So that's body orientation. Are they leaning towards you when they're listening? Are they leaning back? That makes a big difference. So orienting towards you, right? Leaning, and then also the angle means people are interested or paying attention. And the opposite is usually true if they're facing away, right? Or leaning back. Posture, gestures, your face and eyes. This is really important. This is part of body language, right? Kinesics. So micro expressions, this is very important. These are these small little expressions you'll make that it's leakage. You're leaking cues about what you really feel. So a quick story to demonstrate this. A few years ago, we were talking about this in class, and I had a student, and she was talking about driving through Kailua downtown, and she was with her boyfriend at the time, and I don't know, they were driving at an intersection. He looked to the side, and there was another girl over there. And then when he looked back to drive, my student asked him, "What are you looking at?" And he said, "Oh, what? Nothing." And right there, she kind of knew, and she said, we talked about this in class. Right there, I said, not, and I talked to him about it. But that's micro expression. It's kind of that little bit of a gap, a little bit of a pause. We look away, we change things up a little bit. And actually, our ability, you can read the book or look it up on YouTube even, our ability to judge micro expressions is probably more accurate than a lie detector test. So we subconsciously know when people are deceiving us by these little nonverbal cues. Their tone might change. They might slow down. They might pause. They might add words that are unnecessary. And that's leakage as well. Okay, so we can talk about those. Paralanguage. Let me disappear here for a second. Okay, so paralanguage or paralinguistics, this is about your voice and how people use their voice to communicate. We all do. This is the tone of your voice. So example, emphasis, tone, rate, pitch, volume, pauses. So these you all kind of know, but just for fun, a quick example is if I just change my tone, this tends to kind of people, oh, that's really weird. All I'm doing is changing my tone, right? Another example could be rate. If you think about rate, if you watch the evening news or cable, oftentimes they'll have pharmaceutical commercials, right, in there, right? And they'll have this really happy, I don't know, family playing around, dancing, whatever, and they're trying to sell you a new drug. Toward the end of that commercial, what you're going to hear very quickly, the rate is probably, I don't know, almost 200 words a minute, like an auctioneer would speak. Going once, going twice, that's 200 words per minute, right? So in these commercials, they'll increase the rate, may cause diarrhea, vomiting, and death. Very quickly, we still understand it, right? The rate, but that's done for a reason. Can you imagine if the commercial, the same one, was slowed down for an anti-anxiety drug, for example, and they said this drug may cause vomiting, diarrhea, and death, and all they're doing is changing their paralanguage there, right? So pay attention to the way people use their voices. Another term here is haptics. I remember this one, haptics, touch. So how do we use touch, right? In terms of you've worked, maybe not nowadays, but before in the service industry. I was a busboy, I was a server. Sometimes if people would touch you on the shoulder, they said you'd get a bigger tip, right? Think about other jobs where you do have to touch, like being a dentist or a hairstylist. So touch really communicates. Think about how we use it today. How do men touch? How do women touch? We high five versus hug. We don't do each other's hair as men, right? Appearance matters. This one we're not going to talk about too much because you know that absolutely communicates. A few more terms here: physical space, proxemics. So proximity, if you remember that word, proxemics is space. Your space from other people communicates, right? And this is Edward Hall in here. They have you can read the book for all of them in there, but there's intimate, social, and so on. The one I want you to focus on is personal distance, because that one in America tends to be pretty obvious, right? It's really an arm's length. So let's say they say 18 inches to 0 is intimate, of course. And then let's say 1.5 feet, 18 inches to about 3 feet or so is personal space. So that's where your friends, your family, all those folks are going to be, right, within an arm's length. Outside of that distance is social. And then outside, I think 12 feet is public, right? So you don't have to acknowledge people. But think about how we use distance, maybe within your own family, when you go out in public, how you park, if you ride the bus, and who takes up more distance. Do culture and gender matter? Territoriality, of course, look around your home. Who gets what space? Okay, almost done here. What else communicates nonverbally? Your physical environment. Very quickly, think about Starbucks versus McDonald's. The different colors in there. How do they communicate? The feel of the chairs, right? Think of a college classroom versus a warehouse. What's the difference? Olfactics. This is a fun one. Very quickly, smell. How does smell communicate? It could be body odor. It could be Chanel number 5 for $5,000 an ounce. How do we know what smells communicate? Are we taught certain things, right, like Chanel, or do we inherently biologically know, like something that might be spoiling? Okay. Chronemics is time. How do we use time to communicate? So, for example, I went over 9 minutes, but I'm the teacher. I'm going to take some time. Okay, I'm hurrying up, really. But chronemics, think about that. Why do you wait for your doctor, but you go to McDonald's, there's a line, you'll go to Popeyes across the street instead? So chronemics and how we use time, which is nonverbal, indicates power, status, and your relationship. So think about that text you got from your friend or a partner, and did you take time to reply? Did you reply right away? So time does matter. Okay. That's it for this week. 10 minutes. Thank you very much for your time. Let me know in the comments below if these shorter videos are working for you, if I should turn my video on more, or just show up in our Zoom classes. Keep posting your videos. And thank you very much, everyone, for contributing your sincere, honest, and well thought out feedback for the class. Great. Have a great module, everyone.